Hey guys, so I've been thinking about something, and it's probably going to be the subject of my next article that I've been publishing on Twitter. So shout out to you guys who have seen those. If you do not follow me on Twitter, it's at Darian underscore UTSA. But one of the things that I've been thinking about, and I've been sort of talking about amongst my group of friends, is where does UTSA go next? Where exactly is the next milestone for UTSA? Right. When you look at some of the problems and the issues with getting people to pack the dome, when you look at some of the issues with NIL money and where we are in the new age of college football, the question for me now goes back to where does UTSA go from here? We've already been in a situation where when the program first started and Larry Coker was the head coach, and I was there to experience it, where UTSA would get these massive crowds. We did 56,000 um, that first season in that first game, and I know that's sort of an outlier, but we were over 40,000 quite a bit, and it sort of went down a little bit as time went on, but at the same time, will we ever get back to those heights, right? You'd say no because UTSA is blocked off. The Alamo Dome is blocked off the top level for UTSA to make the dome feel a little bit more, um, you know, rowdy and to get people and force people to be closer together, right? Just so the it can feel more intense. I think, and a lot of that has to do with the attendance has just not required folks to or the Alamo Dome to have that upper dome or the upper level open. So anyway, when you think about that and you think about also what we did in the Conference USA with the back-to-back titles, you start to wonder like, was that the peak of UTSA? Right. And here's the thing, like whenever a program comes in, programs often don't just continue on an ascent all the way to the top, right? I think you got to check some boxes to continue to climb that ladder because we've seen programs, not be very good and then they reach higher levels to where they're some of the top programs in the country and then they fall back down, so on and so forth. And I look at UTSA and I say, well, does UTSA have any of the resources that would make us one of the best teams overall in the country? Right. Yes, we have been a team that has been ranked, but we haven't been able to sustain that. Right. We don't have the resources to compete with some of those teams that are in the upper echelon of college football. So it makes me ponder and think, like, what is actually the next milestone? Is that dominating the AAC conference and getting a AAC championship under our belt? Is that what the next milestone is? What does that do for program success? Right? How does UTSA fare in the next few years whenever Coach Traylor says, you know what, I actually want to try something else, right? I don't know if he'll stay here and be a 15, have a 15-year tenure or something like that. But he's alluded to having a couple of dream jobs out there. And if he does really, really well, who knows if he'll take those, right? So to me, what I was thinking about is like, what is the next big thing that UTSA is going to do to continue its ascent? Or will UTSA sort of like even out where we are right now? A pretty good team, a team that's built a winning culture within Texas. Obviously a Texas first school, and then you look at how we are in the conference. Are we going to be middle tier of the conference, top half of the conference? Like where are we going to settle there? I think in an ideal world, me being a UTSA supporter, I would obviously want UTSA to go on and be the biggest program possible. But reality can sort of set in of like, hey, are we getting cozy where we are right now? How agree I feel like UTSA has gotten to this point and it's been a aggressive ascent to where we have been coming from being a school that was, I mean, we played an NAI school, I believe, in our first season, right? So coming from thinking about that, that's just 15 years ago to where we are now, and some of the barriers that UTSA has broken down. That's huge. That's like extra fast growth. I don't think even the officials at UTSA thought that it would be this fast. But when you get to this particular point, now I think some of the barriers and the walls to get above and to get through are a bit too steep, because now I think you start to, I think the next step is like significant money. I think next step is significant fundraising. Next step is getting the facilities that the coaches have been talking about. And we have done some of that. The facilities that we've put in place recently and we're continuing to do, I think is a step forward. But to me, I was posed that question, and my answer was I don't know. Because if you ask me that 5 years, like I just think about UTSA's trajectory since its inception. I'm talking about football. When you look at, all right, whenever we started out as a program, there was a clear path on what was next, right? It was like, all right, we're going to play this independent schedule to start. Then we plan to move into a conference. There were rumors that we were going to do Southland Conference in the very, very beginning that bothered a lot of folks, but we ended up going to the WAC conference. And then from the WAC conference to the Conference USA. And at that point, it was like, hey, we need to establish ourselves on that particular level. We had a coaching change, and this coach was supposed to start. The new coach, which was Frank Wilson, was supposed to establish sort of a foundational identity for UTSA. And I don't know if he necessarily did that in the 4 years that he was at UTSA. And we weren't a very good football team as well. We did start to made a couple bowl games, or a bowl game, but that's sort of what that was. And then you fast forward to the Trailer era, and I think Trailer has laid a great foundation on something that UTSA can build on even post him. And that's come with a lot of success. But I think that was a big deal too, is we finally put ourselves in position to be winners of the conference. We won in his second year. We won in his third year, the conference. We started to really produce names that are now making a name for themselves on the NFL level. We've done those things. But whenever I look at far out, it's one of the reasons I put out the article I did this past Monday. I was talking about Coach Traylor and his future and the realities of what happens to G5 coaches, right? They go into a program, they build it up to its highest heights, and then they look elsewhere to figure out what their next thing is going to be. And I think Coach Traylor has a special connection to UTSA, but I'm looking at it from a fan perspective, and I'm like, okay, well, what's next? Is it just establishing, dominance or dominating the AAC? That could be the answer. That very well could be the answer. But to me, when someone poses that question, it's not necessarily about can we dominate the AAC. With the way conferences are moving, and you had the Pac-12, which I have no confidence in whatever that their situation is. But when you start to attract that kind of attention, people will throw out Big 12 and all these types of dreams and things like that going forward. None of those seem realistic to me with some of the problems that we are having right now. And also when you think about what's going on with the house settlement and NIL and player pay and transfer portal and stuff like that. When you think about that $20 million threshold from a revenue standpoint that most of those big upper echelon colleges are going to be able to pay their athletics programs, we won't be able to do that, not even a little bit. We won't be able to do that, not even a little bit. So whenever you think about the future of where the program can go, and when you think about where the ceiling is, I don't know if I can confidently say the ceiling right now is, to be on par with teams in the Big 12, right? I don't know if I can say that. I think when you look at San Antonio as a whole, you'd wish that and you'd think that, considering that there's no football in San Antonio, there's no professional team in San Antonio. And when you look at how big the city is, you think that UTSA could make some noise and be able to pull in money in a way that UTSA could make some of those strides. But I think the biggest problem with that is the city is not behind UTSA the same way Austin is behind UT. And I know that contrast is very stark, but that's intentional. Austin is a small place. Don't get me wrong, there's definitely some money in this place, but it's a smaller place than San Antonio. You think if you can get a fraction of San Antonio to get behind the team, the same way folks get behind the Longhorns, you'd be able to work with something. But for whatever reason, San Antonio is not necessarily behind UTSA in that way. And I think UTSA has historically struggled, and I say historically, but over the last 15 years has struggled to really keep folks within the city interested, engaged, and charged up about UTSA football. So to me, I think football is going to raise the level of the university in all sports. And obviously, our women's basketball team did great this year. We're seeing really good things out of the baseball team. The baseball team has been historically good. UTSA's track team has been historically good. But in terms of, money and revenue and things like that, obviously football is gonna hold a lot of weight to that. And like I said before, I'd be curious to hear what you guys hear what you guys think. But I literally don't know what the next step is for UTSA. Maybe it's just dominating the AAC now, but that's cool. But you can dominate the AAC. What does that do for your program? Does that mean you're going to get more eyes? Does that mean you're going to get more people coming to the games? Does that mean you're going to get more investment and more money? Hopefully, but I think time will tell. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. What you guys think UTSA's next step is? What do you guys think? What will take UTSA to that next level that I'm talking about, where the upper echelon teams are? Let me know in the comments. Make sure you guys like and subscribe to the video. I'll catch you guys next week. Peace.